Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Tunnel Vision, a show brought to you by USCFootball.com. I'm your host, Keely Eure, joined by Shotgun Spratling and Ryan Abraham. We're all back in the studio. These guys took a nice little trip to Hawaii to do some work in quotation marks. But before we get into our little discussion, let's go over quickly today's topics. We're going to talk about still no offensive coordinator for USC. What's going on over there at Heritage Hall? We'll talk about that. Strength and conditioning. Is there a new coach coming in? There's some rumors. We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the drama involving the Song Girls and how they were banned from USC basketball games. Pretty crazy. And then, of course, we're going to talk about JT Daniels. Ryan Abraham wants to talk about this, so we'll get into that. We might even see a Ryan rant coming.
Maybe.
Who knows? Who knows? And, of course, we will get to your questions. So make sure, I believe we are on all three, YouTube Live, Facebook, and Periscope.
Yep.
Well done for us.
Okay.
So make sure you put your comments and questions below. We'll be monitoring them. But guys, let's get into it. Let's just do a rundown of the topics. First off, still no offensive coordinator for USC. It's pretty much crickets. We haven't really heard much. All quiet, unusually quiet, I think. What have you guys been hearing? What are you taking from this silence from USC?
Yeah, so I don't think silence is a good thing. Last show we did was our emergency version of the Tunnel Vision when we found out for sure that Cliff Kingsbury was leaving. It's been like 2 weeks now since this has happened. So when we heard Clay Helton, we didn't hear from Clay Helton, but they gave his little statement out there and he mentioned weeks. And we reported on USCFootball.com. We felt it was going to take a little bit of time. It wasn't going to be something quick. Our buddy Chris Cartman, who covers Arizona State, they had a really quick turnaround in what I think was their defensive line coach. They had a list ready. Herm Edwards talked about it like, hey, they knew that this could happen. They had a bunch of guys ready. So, like, he leaves, boom, they replace him. Now, it's, different defensive line coach and offensive coordinator. But you feel like the Kingsbury thing was this just gift from heaven. Like, it just fell into their laps. It was great. I mean, kudos for USC for getting Cliff Kingsbury because you had to sign off on it, Lynn Swann and Clay Helton, and they did. And Cliff Kingsbury wanted to come. It was the easy thing. It happened quickly. This one's not going to be as easy. And you knew from the very beginning there wasn't an obvious choice. Now you've already started to look at the Cliff Kingsbury playbook. So do you want to go with, the air raid sort of thing? All the other coaching changes were not really big moves, including one internal promotion. So you sort of left there's a lot of limitations, I think, with this search compared to the other one, because you've already hired all these other coaches. Now, do you want to get rid of some of them? If someone really big was going to come in, they'd probably want to bring in a lot of their own guys. This one's a lot more complicated, so you never got the feeling, oh, this is going to go really quick. And we've seen USC not really react to these sort of situations where there's a lot of thought involved. There's a lot of moving pieces. You just knew it was probably going to take some time. So the fact that nothing's happened yet, probably not a good thing. I don't know what do you think, Shotgun?
No, I mean, I think they should have made a hire by the beginning of, this week for sure. If not before. I gave them about a week and a half after the Cliff Kingsbury leaving. That was basically my timeline when they should have. And again, I've said you need to have a list ready to go in case anything like this were to happen. You should always have a list of viable candidates that you like or you want to talk to, type of thing. I don't know if maybe they decided they needed to go to Hawaii and get some time in the sun. They're like, oh, we got to get back on this coaching search thing now, I guess. But it seems like there's been people on vacation. That's what it seems like. There's been no word of anyone they're interviewing. So it kind of falls into two categories. Is it going to be USC already has a guy in line and they're waiting for that person to become available? If they are coaching for the Patriots or the Rams, that's a possibility. But otherwise, it just seems like they're being very deliberate with it, taking their time, which if you get the greatest offensive coordinator in the world, then yeah, that works.
Right.
But you kind of already lost him to the Cardinals, so the second best guy there. We need to get him to come in.
Yeah.
Now, as far as timing goes, how much, as of today, early signing day is 2 weeks away. How much does that, not early signing day, the normal signing day is 2 weeks away. So how much does that force their hand as far as timing goes?
What we had heard, and we reported this up on we have a hot board up on USCFootball.com for members and stuff. And the last thing I'd heard was they wanted somebody by the end of the month. February 6th is the day. You need to have someone in place. USC has a couple of big commitments right now. Puka Nacua, who was killing it He killed it in San Antonio at the All-American Bowl, and he killed it in Hawaii at the Polynesian Bowl. And of course, Kyle Ford, who's a 5-star, who I saw at the opening, was just crushed it. He was the best player there. He caught like 18 touchdown passes in a week, and it was like something ridiculous. So those are two big commitments. I know they're both wide receivers. Does USC need more? I mean, these are really good guys. These are guys you want on your team. But they want to know who the offensive coordinator is going to be. So I think you need to give some time. But there's also, USC likes to start spring practice somewhat early, early March. You'd like to have somebody in place. If it's going to be an air raid guy, I think they've already got a head start. If not, you're going to have to make some moves. So I agree with Shotgun. I think you can take some time, but it doesn't seem like there's this sense of urgency. It doesn't seem like the feeling you get, and especially because usually stuff will leak, right? Like we'll get something from USC sources. There's national writers that might get stuff from agents. Like there's not been like a peep, and you don't say, oh, USC's doing a really good job keeping everything internal. There's not a lot going on in the search because you would hear something, and there just hasn't been that way. So you just feel like it's going to be, my guess is it's going to be somewhat of an underwhelming hire. Maybe they'll surprise you. Maybe something will happen, but it's hard to imagine at this point you're going to be like, I mean, anything after Kingsbury was going to be
it's going to be a letdown. Yeah.
But it might be a little bit tougher than it could have been.
Yeah, I just don't think that you're going to bounce back and have the same hire as you had with Cliff Kingsbury, obviously. But when you're taking this long, that tells me I just don't know why it's taking this long.
Yeah.
It tells me that there's not something in place unless it's the NFL route. So, I mean, there's been rumors that it's Jedd Fisch. If that could be the case, but we've had no people tell us that on our side. So, it could potentially be that, and they're just waiting on him to become available. Though that's really tough for you if you can't tell recruits right now that, I mean, you would expect they would at least be, whispering it to recruits or something, at least those offensive guys, because otherwise you're going to have Jedd Fisch or any person that's currently involved in the Super Bowl, any of those coaches, if they were to become USC's offense coordinator, they have 3 days before signing day. 3 days. That's it.
Yeah.
You go from Sunday, like, okay, yeah, you won a ring or you didn't. Oh, I'm so sad. Hey, can you get on the phone? Can you, before you even come back, while you're flying, can we get you on the phone, whatever it may be, because you're going to have 3 days to recruit before signing day starts.
Yeah.
I mean, it did happen with Cliff too, but it's a little different this time around.
And he is an analyst. He's not like an assistant coach. So I don't know if there's different rules because, if they could say, hey, we're going to bring him on, but he's going to stay through the Super Bowl, that would be ideal. I don't know if there's any kind of different rules because of that. He's also worked he's worked with Tim Drevno before on the staff. We've heard that there was some, I don't know, there might be some, there was someone on the staff that he might not have got along with or something. There could be some hurdles there. We've heard a lot of different things on that, but it's still, like Shaka was saying, it just doesn't seem like right now that there was a plan in place for sure for this, something happens. And not that saying that USC's completely at fault for this. I mean, no one really expected that, but there were definitely rumblings that NFL teams were interested in Cliff Kingsbury. And you could either say, that's bull. And I've talked to guys that cover coaching searches, and they were like, they didn't believe it at all. And it obviously ended up happening. So you can get the fact that USC was just sort of caught off guard. But when you hear rumblings like that, I think you really have to, in the background, go, okay, well, what's the next plan? And you didn't feel like that happened at all. And then it was start from square one when Kingsbury went off, and it just wasn't going to be something that was quick or efficient. Or, we'll see. We're going to know soon, but it's taken a while.
Maybe.
So
That's hopefully. Cross your
I mean,
fingers.
if not, then it's I don't think you can go to signing day without it.
Hey, don't tempt USC to do something you don't think they can do.
Now, okay, we'll get back into offensive coordinator talk a little bit more. I'm sure we have a ton of questions, so we're going to get through these topics. Strength and conditioning. Now, that's something that it was interesting. At the end of the towards the start of the offseason, there was a lot of fan support for getting a new strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah.
Now, we've heard reports that Ivan Lewis is going to go to the Seattle Seahawks. Pete Carroll parted ways with Chris Carlisle, who he's been with for 18 years, I believe. What does that mean for USC? We've heard no official report as of now. What does that mean for USC going forward, and who potentially could they get for a new strength and conditioning coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, I like Ivan Lewis, but I think when you talk about what Lynn Swann wanted and all those changes made, you probably needed to change your strength and conditioning coach no matter what.
Yeah.
So it could be a thing where USC promotes from within, and there's really not that much of a change because it's going to be the same sort of system, maybe a little bit of a change, or you go outside. But nothing's been officially announced. I mean, every source that I talked to said he's definitely gone. I mean, do you make a swap and you bring Chris Carlisle back, who was pretty popular? He was, the guy that Pete Carroll got rid of. Hard to say. I think right now there's probably not going to be a lot of focus on it because they need to bring in the offensive coordinator. Similar to the search before, you weren't going to find out about these other assistants until they made the offensive coordinator hire, and then they kind of made some other changes. I think that's going to be a little bit more of a back burner thing. Most likely people who are already in the program are going to stick around, and someone will take over the job temporarily. Maybe Clay Helton makes it a permanent thing. I do think this is a great opportunity because it gets you closer to what the Notre Dame model was, because they did switch up strength and conditioning. Do you go out and get someone with a different philosophy? And I think it would be great to interview people and talk to different people and find out, like, hey, what is your philosophy for this? What is your philosophy for that? And kind of, Clay Helton can kind of, take what everyone says and say, all right, I think we want to go in this direction. This guy's got a proven track record, so we're going to do that. So hopefully they, but they're going to be running out of time because, spring football is coming around. You'd like to get someone in place as quickly as possible. So another, I think that's a complicated one. The Rolodex for strength coaches is probably not that big. I mean, Pete Carroll's known the same guys for 20 years. He's only used those guys. So we'll see what Clay Helton does.
They worked for him.
Yeah.
for Pete Carroll. His strength coaches, they work well. The thing with strength and conditioning is you got to get done before you start these off-season workouts.
Yeah.
The off-season workouts are huge towards the season. Spring practice is important. Off-season workouts are probably more important than spring practice. Because spring practice, a lot of players are not participating because they're recovering from surgeries and different things like that. You don't get true one-on-one competition all the time. Off-season workouts are huge. They need to be in there working out and getting stronger. And if you don't have a strength and conditioning coach, I mean, they're probably just passing the baton right now to someone else. But if you go in a different direction, you want someone that ends up working a different philosophy, you need to get them in there as quickly as possible.
Yeah. 100%, because it will just be the torch handed down. But if you are going to make a big change, the faster you get them in there, the better prepared they'll be for spring football and then obviously for the 2019 season.
And especially the fact that how many injuries you've had in the last year or two. If you're a strength and conditioning coach, you want to go in a different direction, you want to do that before spring so that you can have people healthy for spring.
Yeah. I think it would be important just to bring in a voice from the outside, just another voice. Like, it was great to have Kingsbury in another voice. Mike Jenks at least will be somewhat of another voice. He was a former head coach, so there's something going on there. But you bring in go get the strength coach from some other school. I mean, where Kingsbury was, Texas Tech got rid of theirs, and we heard really high marks about him, like a former Green Beret or something like that. I forget the whole story. But you just get someone like that, whoever it is, someone that was running another program somewhere else, and they will bring in some different ideas. And, it'll just be a little bit different, a different voice. And I think that should change the culture a little bit. I think that can be a little bit of a catalyst to making this team go forward and get off that 5-7 mark that they were on last year.
Yeah, if you want to talk about culture changes, I think the way you do that is bringing in outside voices, and that definitely works with a strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah.
As far as the Song Girls go, as I mentioned at the top, they were banned from basketball games, both men and women's basketball games, but the Trojan dance force is still there. It seems like they've been shut out a little bit. We have a quote from the LA Times article from Brady McCullough, who wrote the piece. So a former Song Girl captain in 2007, Lauren, she says the lack of discourse, the absence of explanation, and the closed-door atmosphere of USC athletics is unfamiliar and frankly disconcerting. Why? And then Lynn Swann responded to her letter and said, due to ongoing game management concerns, time constraints, and space issues at the Galen Center, the USC Song Girls will not perform at the remaining men's and women's basketball games for the 2018-19 season. Now, Lynn Swann is not very popular at the moment in the fan base. It seems like this is something that's not going to help you. Why take away something that is cherished and loved by USC fans across the board? Why even try and do this in the middle of a season?
It doesn't make any sense to me, but there's not been a lot of sense made. Shotgun, former Song Girl, he worked out with the Song Girls. I mean, back in the day, this has got to be fairly hurtful for him. And we did a podcast with Dan Weber and Keely Eure, was it yesterday or something?
Yes, it was.
So there was a topic. I was like, oh, we should bring this up. And I wasn't really like, the more I talked about it on the air, I just got more mad. I was like, why is this happening? Like, you can't. If like you were trying to figure out a way to upset the fans more, like what could you do? Like, what could you possibly do? Let's see. Let's ban the song girls. That seems like a smart thing to do. Like, literally, it's like someone from the outside, like a spy or something, is coming in and like, I'm trying to sabotage the USC program. We're going to get someone close to Lynn Swann. We're going to send them messages like, can you convince Lynn Swann to ban the song girls from the basketball games? Like, that doesn't seem like a good idea. Like, okay. And he does. And, it almost seems like it's from the outside more than like someone internally came up with this and decided this was worth fighting for. Like, this is a hill you want to stand on. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's a beloved tradition for 50 years at USC. They had an awesome thing at the homecoming when I went as, because it was my 25th anniversary. It was like the 50th anniversary of the Song Girls. It was great. It was really cool to see all that. And then to have this happen just seems weird. And unfortunately, it might be because of the guy sitting next to me. So I don't know. because of his tweet. I don't know if you want to explain yourself, Shotgun, getting the Song Girls banned.
I don't think I got them banned. I just tweeted what I heard during the game, which was during the Notre Dame game, I believe. Yeah. That the USC student section started chanting some Fire Helton chants, and the Song Girls contributed to those chants, which I thought was notable. And apparently it was to a lot of people because there was a big discourse about it in my mentions and stuff. And apparently that discourse must have made its way back to Lynn Swann. The rumor is at least that potentially their behavior on the sideline, I guess for that game, I mean, Keely and I have heard them throughout the season. They were pretty demonstrative. This particular group of Song Girls, they were very in tune with the game, but also very riled up, partly because USC was 5-7.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I feel like they're still college football fans in that sense, and I don't, and I think they're allowed to have reactions. I just think, in my opinion, I just don't know if this is a punishment for that, which we don't know. I don't know if it's the proportional punishment for them chanting Fire Helton. It wasn't like they started the cheer or led the cheer. And I understand that they're a representation of the university, but I don't agree that this is, if that's why they're punished, that's proportional.
Yeah. I don't think that's why, and I'm just kidding about blaming Shotgun for this, but it probably was somewhat of a factor because, in Lynn Swann's statement, it was about space concerns and things. It's been working for years. There's not like a lot of people at the basketball games. Brady McCullough, go read his article. They turned down 50 Song Girl alumni to go to a game. This was a game, the lowest attended crosstown rivalry game in like whatever. I don't know how long was it. Like for a long time. Like it was 5,000 people showed up to this game. You're turning away 50 people that want to come. Like you shouldn't be turning anybody away. You want more reasons for people to come to the game. You just gave people more reasons not to come to basketball games, and that doesn't make any sense to me. And I think the statement, if you want to put the statement up from, was it Lauren again?
Yeah.
So I think when you look at what she was saying about the athletic department, it wasn't just this. And this feels like it's one of those last straw kind of things where it's like just another one in a long line of just missteps by the athletic department. And you feel like they're in a bubble. And lack of discourse, absence of explanation, and the closed door atmosphere. It's unfamiliar and disconcerting, and that's what you feel like. They don't make themselves available. The Song Girls are reaching out. No one's telling them what's going on. It just seems like these decisions are made in some sort of vacuum. And it's not just this; it's like all these other things. But this could be the thing that puts people over the top, where it's like just one more thing. So I don't think this was smart by the athletic department at all. I'm sure there was some reason somewhere. I'm sure there's a much better solution than banning the song. Like, just saying the words, you've banned the Song Girls. Like, that makes no sense to me.
This whole thing with unfamiliar and frankly disconcerting, it doesn't seem unfamiliar. This has been the case with USC, not just athletics, but the entirety of USC administration for the last 5 or so years, it seems like. You don't hear from people. There was the whole, when Nikias and all the scandals that went on, and Nikias wouldn't talk about those with the LA Times or anyone else. They if you read any of those articles, repeatedly try to get comment. No, not talking about it. Lynn Swann, you want to have a press conference about I don't know, anything? No, let's not talk about that. They don't want to talk about anything. They are set in their decisions. They don't want to. We don't need to explain ourselves to you.
Yeah.
Hey, Lynn Swann, Clay Helton's our coach. You guys should just get on board and be fans and be good Trojan fans. That's basically what he tried to tell them on the Trojans Live program.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't be bad fans. You're supposed to support us regardless. It doesn't matter what decision I make, you support it.
Yeah.
It's kind of a dictatorship mentality. And you're seeing that not just from Lynn Swann, not just from the athletic department, but that's kind of been the administration over the last 5 years, I would say.
Yeah.
Maybe even a little bit longer than that. You could say better how it's transpired over your 25 years since going to school, but it seems it's been a decline into that of open, familiarity, that whole thing to we'll make decisions, you get over it.
Yeah. I've been very critical of Pat Hayden. I would say he was the worst. He's made the worst decisions as an athletic director, but he would talk to them like he would talk to you. He was very, he'd be friendly. He was, he's been around the program. You just feel like Lynn Swann came in. He wasn't around the program much, and he was like kind of comes in as an observer and was just kind of observing things. And you feel like that's what he's still doing. Like he's still not putting himself out there, and he's still not making these decisions, or he's making them, and he's just like doing it behind closed doors in a bubble and just kind of pushing decrees through. It's like, okay, this is what's happening, and we're not going to talk to people. And you feel, and sometimes organizations do that when you're struggling. They were obviously 5-7. Everyone wanted the coach fired. They fly a banner over the Coliseum, and they feel like the administration is being tone deaf, and they kind of lock it down even more. So they're not. Cliff Kingsbury never had a press conference at USC. Like, that was the best thing that happened to USC, and they didn't even make him available as a press conference. When you do that, though, the reporters are still going to be out there doing our jobs. We're still out there doing things. Would Brady McCullough have written a story about the Song Girls being banned if, like, we'd heard from Lynn Swann and Clay Helton and stuff? Probably not, because we'd have other things to talk about. But they just kind of shut you out, and then you're like, okay, you got to go find stories, and you get something like this. So it's another black eye. I think it's avoidable from the athletic department. And, Lynn Swann's new to this. Hopefully he's kind of learning on the job and figuring things out. But it just seems like time after time, these tone-deaf responses, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Another consistent is learning on the job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic for USC. What I don't understand is there has to be someone from a PR standpoint going, are we sure you want to do this? Like, are you sure? Because this is going to go over bad. Is no one thinking that far ahead to see that there's going to be problems? Or is it just Swann's way?
Yeah, you feel like the sense you get is there's people in the athletic department that understand a lot of this. And they're big fans of the football program. They don't want to see it fail. They don't want to ban Song Girls. But it doesn't seem like at the very top where Lynn Swann is it's penetrating. And so that's the feeling I get. We'll see going forward. But I think it would help him a lot if he made himself available a little bit more, because then you could at least say things out loud and talk, and people are asking questions, because I don't feel like he's getting that or he listens to the people inside. And there's a lot of complaints coming in. We hear on our message boards on the Peristyle, USCfootball.com all the time, I canceled my tickets, I sent a letter, I called in, and none of that seems to matter.
Yeah. Well, moving on to our next topic before we get into your comments and questions. And if you want to put in your comments and questions, we'll get to those. I'm monitoring them as we speak. This was something that Ryan wanted to talk about. So, Ryan, I'm going to let you take the mantle, if you will. But you want to talk about JT Daniels, because when there is a new offensive coordinator, then everyone brings up, well, are all positions up for grabs, especially starting quarterback. Now, it sounded like before any of this new offseason movements happened, Clay Helton said he was pretty excited to see what JT Daniels does, having spring under his belt and having the offseason. But Cliff Kingsbury wanted to open up the quarterback competition. Obviously, he's not here anymore, which begs the question, will the next offensive coordinator open the quarterback competition up again? Ryan, you have some thoughts on this.
Yeah, so so there's a lot. I feel like maybe Shotgun's with me. I'm like one of the last JT Daniels defenders out there. There's the sentiment across the board is he's not the best quarterback. He shouldn't be starting. Everyone was happy. Cliff Kingsbury said they're going to be an open competition, and which is great. I think you should do that. They had a competition, and we watched practice, and there was no question that JT Daniels was the best practice quarterback, at least what we saw. Like, it wasn't even close. So I don't know if an open competition is going to do much of anything. Will the new offensive coordinator do that? But whenever this comes up, I just see so many USC fans. And I think it was the Rain of Troy podcast today with our friend Alicia. Michael wasn't on it, but she had a guest host. And I don't remember his name. I apologize. But yeah, and I just feel like Alicia not so much, but the guest host was certainly getting on JT Daniels, and they're just like, oh, it's like Jack Sears is way better, or it's like he had one start and he was very efficient in that game. But to put all the blame on JT Daniels, to me, just doesn't make sense. We saw him in high school. We saw him in all the All-Star games. He was awesome. They were comparing him to like Trevor Lawrence. Like, he's good. We saw him at the opening. I don't know if you were that one, but like he was as good as Trevor Lawrence was there. I feel like what you're saying that it's JT Daniels' fault with all the things that were going on. It's like you're in the middle. We just talked about this. Maybe this is a good analogy, non-restaurant analogy. The Fry Festival. If you're like the crazy millennial thing that was going to be the party of the year, and it turned into just a freaking nightmare. I saw both documentaries on it, and this was doomed to fail from the beginning. And it's like the guy up the top is like you brought in a new project coordinator in the middle of this nightmare and expect him, oh, he didn't fix everything, he's a terrible project coordinator. Like, I don't think so. I feel like you put JT Daniels in this sort of nightmare scenario where who was calling the plays? He had a rookie quarterback coach that was, coaching him and all this stuff, and no real veterans behind him to really teach him anything. I just feel he was put in this horrible position, and to expect him to, do better. He did as good as Matt Barkley did his freshman year, and I think there was better pieces around him, better coaching and things like that. So I don't know. I mean, maybe he's not going to be as good as everyone thought. I still think he's going to be good. I think if you put a great offensive system in there, a good coaching staff, he'll be good. If you put Jack Sears in there for the whole year or Matt Fig for the whole year, I don't think they would have done any better than JT Daniels. But I just feel like the narrative is from USC fans like, he sucks. He was out of there. He was 5-star. No, terrible. It's like, I don't get where that's coming from.
I think if the offensive line plays better too, that makes it a lot easier on him. Anytime you have a freshman quarterback, they get pressured early, especially when they get beat up in that Stanford game, it's going to be hard for them to recover and bounce back immediately and be, all world. Well, USC decided to bounce back from getting beat up by Stanford. Let's have him throw 60 times against Texas. Like that, I mean, there's some things.
In the craziest environment, the biggest crowd in Texas history, that's where you decided to have him drop back 55 times.
And I thought he was decent in that game to good. He's probably good in that game. The problem is, like, there were so many things where he wasn't helped.
Yes.
If you want a true freshman to come in and star right away, it helps when you got Clemson where you throw it up and, T. Higgins or whoever it is, the wide receivers, Ross and all those guys, go up and just catch the ball. Ross goes and catches it way over here. Makes the quarterback look a lot better. USC had some drop issues. USC's offensive line was porous, especially early in the season. They got better as the season progressed, but they basically gave up a penalty or had a pressure every 9.5 snaps. That's not good, in case you're wondering. So you can't go a full 10-play drive without having a pressure or a penalty. And there was just a lot of things that did not help him out. He was much better when he was not under pressure.
Yeah.
His numbers were very bad when he was under pressure. The problem was he was under pressure a lot because the offensive line didn't help him out. If they can shore those things up, I think that makes a lot of things easier for him. He can make reads quicker. I think you're not as worried about getting hit, so you can step into throws more. I think his mechanics got affected when he suddenly, when he gets beat up in that first game. I thought his mechanics were off the next couple of weeks. He was good against Texas, but I still thought there were throws he could have made that I've seen him make before. He's not stepping into it. He's throwing more arm. He's not, he's opening up his hips too early. A lot of things like that where when you're an 18-year-old kid, he could have stayed his senior year of high school, sure. He was still an 18-year-old kid. He got beat up.
Yeah.
You get beat up as an 18-year-old, you're less apt to go right back to your mechanics and everything else. It's just the facts of being an 18-year-old kid, being a freshman. So I think you deserve some slack there in that regard. Matt Barkley didn't get beat up like he did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had similar numbers to Matt Barkley's.
Yeah.
Matt Barkley's offensive line did much better than JT's offensive line did this year. Now, when Jack Sears came in, it added a different element to the offense. Jack Sears did pretty good in his one start against Arizona State. If we would have saw that over a 3-start period, I'd be more apt to say he should be maybe the front runner going into this. I think there should be a competition regardless. As offense coordinator, you bring in a new coach, you should always have open competition.
Yeah.
This offense coordinator, maybe he does something that's different than the previous offense that JT Skills don't align to, or Jack Sears do, or the other way around. If you bring in a triple option offense, I think you probably should have a new competition because a running quarterback might have a better chance.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, that's an extreme example, but anytime you bring in a new offense, you're going to want to see the guys in your system, how quickly they pick up concepts and, certain reads and stuff like that. So I think there should be an open competition, but I don't think that JT Daniels was as terrible as everybody wants to think he was.
Yeah.
No. And I think you have to take into account a first-year quarterbacks coach, a gumbo offense, and his center couldn't even consistently give him a snap. Those are hard things to work against. But let's get into questions.
Sure.
We have
that was my little rant there. Sorry. It was just so
You
much
made
of
me
that.
go on one. I don't like
I'm
it.
glad. We're all in agreement. I like that.
It's true. We have a Facebook question
What do
from
the
Jeff
fans say?
Brown, I believe. He says, if you guys could go out and get any available offensive coordinator for USC, who would you get?
I mean, at this point, I think like a guy like Graham Harrell would work the best at North Texas. They've already got the playbook from what Kingsbury wanted to do, at least touch of it. They were looking at it at least and starting to study it and stuff. I kind of like that system. They have really good. That's the strength of this team is receivers. Put them in good spots. I would probably look at somebody like that right now.
My first pick was Zach Taylor, and he just got hired by the Bengals as their head coach.
Yeah.
And this is why I'm not sold on the Jed Fish talk, because Zach Taylor's still with the Rams. He's going to go throughout the thing. He's not the Bengals head coach, but everybody knows he's going to be the Bengals head coach. So if Jed Fish was going to come to USC, I think you would have heard something about it by now.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm not necessarily sold on that being the what's going to happen. Is it the answer? Maybe Jed Fish did pretty well with the Josh Rosen-led offense at UCLA. That's a possibility. I like Graham Harrell, too. From the little bit I've seen, I haven't been able to watch a lot of North Texas tape. But there's some options out there. You got to kick the tires everywhere like they've done. But I think the spread system, like you said, works well, especially until the offensive line learns how to be power blockers again. And maybe that's a one-year change around. But Clay Helton came in and said, I want to be run first. I want to be a power offense. That has not happened. You can't do that when your offensive line does not block well, in the run game in particular. The offensive line was really good in the pass game this year, very bad in the run game.
Yeah.
You look at the numbers from Pro Football Focus and different things, that was the dichotomy. So if that's going to be the case, do you stick with what you want to do, or do you bring in something that fits your players better? And that's kind of the question you have to do. I mean, every coach has their system, but you can make adjustments towards your players' strengths. I think that something like an air raid, if you're looking for an offensive coordinator, I think that system works really well with the playmakers USC is.
Yeah. I think the most important thing is to bring someone in with their own system. Like that's whoever it is, have your own system. Don't integrate with the gumbo. Like just someone comes in and runs the offense, and Clay Helton oversees the team. I think that's the number one thing, whoever it is.
Yeah, it's their specialty. They know what they're doing. They have control, and that's what they do.
Yeah.
That would be good. Jasper Smith, our buddy, says, is the former UCLA defensive end Jalen Phillips a legit transfer?
He's legit transferring.
Do you mean to USC, Jasper?
I mean, is he a legit option, I think is the question being asked there. I think so. USC was in it to the very end with that, even though both of his parents are Bruin alums. So USC tried very hard in that. Gavin Morris in particular, trying to get Jalen Phillips on campus. I know he's got a lot of friends on the USC team, so I think that's a legit option. Now, there's other options out there.
Yeah.
Obviously, he just went to Miami and took a visit there. So
Was that last weekend, or is he doing that this weekend? I forget what it was.
I think it was last weekend.
But Miami's been crushing it with the transfer, so it could be like
from Bishop Gorman? You mean just the transfers from Bishop Gorman? That's it.
Yeah, but it's pretty good what they're doing there. So we'll see. But I think that would be great. I mean, he's a stud. Like he was one of their best players on defense, I thought.
And speaking of transfers, our buddy Casey Cosgrove on Periscope says, anyone in the new 247 Sports transfer portal, shameless plug, he says, USC should and is going after.
I have not had a chance to look through the transfer portal. I mean, Jalen Phillips is a guy. The dude is an outside linebacker, defensive end. He was returning punts in high school and taking them to the house. He is a beast. Now, obviously, there are the concerns. His career ended at UCLA basically because of medical history and concussions. UCLA, that happened to a lot of guys actually this year. They were really quick to shut down guys with concussions if they had multiple concussions. So that's always a concern. But when he was in high school and even when he was on the field for the limited time he was with the Bruins, he was a beast. So he's a guy you definitely want to try to bring in, especially losing a guy like Porter Gustin. That's a perfect fill-in right there. You follow Uchenna Nwosu with Porter Gustin, you follow Porter Gustin with Jalen Phillips, and that's a nice little transition period there. And Jalen Phillips would be here for a couple years, though. Yeah,
that looks cool. The transfer portal, I haven't got to dig in through it a lot yet, but that was the one name that you kind of were thinking about. I haven't heard much about, hey, USC's in the market for this. But I think it might help because on the recruiting front, things haven't been going as swimmingly as you would have liked. They've certainly missed on some guys, a couple of guys at the Polynesian Bowl that we talked about, Noah Pola-Gates and Devon Ellis. So not getting guys like that. If you could bring someone in to help in the secondary or help on the defensive line or pass rush or something like that, I think it would be great. But I haven't dug through it. But go check it out on 24/7 Sports if you want to go see that.
New feature.
Yeah, it's a new feature. It came today, I think, it was something like that.
I would be looking through for any cornerback available, some safeties, maybe some offensive linemen if there are some guys that are experienced. If you're having grad transfers, the guys that can step in right away that you think can play over the guys you already have.
Yeah.
That's what I'd be looking for. I don't know the names right off the top of my head because I haven't looked through here yet, but those are the ones I would be looking at.
We have a question from Mike Connolly on Facebook. He says, does Kyle Ford and Puka Nacua both sign with USC on February 6th, National Signing Day? Kyle Ford, 5-star wide receiver, committed to USC at the All-American Bowl, and Puka Nacua, a 4-star wide receiver, and he's been committed to USC for a good bit.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think a lot of it depends on the offensive coordinator hire. So if it's like a wah-wah kind of hire, you might lose one or both of them. And I think that would be huge because they're both studs. They're both really good.
Yeah, they're both dudes. I mean, Nacua is coming off of being the West MVP, I believe, of the All-American Bowl, and then was co-Polynesian Player of the Year and also Polynesian Bowl Offensive Player of the Game. He had a ridiculous touchdown in the back of the end zone in the Polynesian Bowl. He is a guy that everyone around him lights up when he's around. And that's players because of how genuine he is and how nice of a kid he is. That's coaches as well because they see the talent. He doesn't, there's nothing that just like, wow, blows you away except production. He just always is open. He's always catching the ball. He makes a guy miss. All of a sudden he turns a 3-yard catch into a 20-yard catch. And he does that consistently. With Kyle Ford, he's just an absolute beast. He was the best wide receiver that has come out of the opening.
Yeah.
He had the best performance of any wide receiver.
Like in opening history or something.
In opening history, yeah. It helped that he had Ryan Helinski as quarterback throwing to him. That always helps. But he is a guy that can go up over guys and make catches. He's a tough physical guy. Think of a guy similar mold as Michael Pittman. Not quite. That's more Brew McCoy. But those three guys, all of them are really, really good. USC needs to try to get them to come in the class. You got to sign those commits. Those two wide receivers. I think that you got to go all in on getting both of those guys here.
Yeah. We had on Periscope, USC Go was like, I can't believe you want Graham Harrell. When you talked about wanting experience, his resume isn't good enough. It's partially the system that he was running, partially who he learned from with Mike Leach. We saw that work out well. I think that is projecting somewhat. It's only been the offensive coordinator for 3 years or something like that. But I think USC is really not. I'd much rather have him than somebody that's never been an offensive coordinator before. It's sort of like, to me, Cliff Kingsbury light. So, yeah, I'd like someone with more experience or something like that. But I don't want to promote from within. I don't want a Brian Ellis coaching the quarterbacks who's never done it before full time. He's at least done this at in college football as an offensive coordinator, doing the same system that Cliff Kingsbury is doing, learning from Mike Leach and all that kind of stuff. So I think that's kind of important. His resume is not amazing, but I think under the circumstances, that would be a good hire.
We have a question from Jasper Smith. He says, who this spring will surprise us and make a huge splash next year?
Ooh. So there's 10 new guys, right? 10 new enrollees, or 10 or 11 or something like that?
Oh, I was going with the veteran. I think if you're looking at a veteran, I think a guy like, if he focuses on film and everything else that he needs to do to be productive, Hunter Echols can really take off this year. I have a stat for you guys later in the week when Chris Trevino and I are breaking down a bunch of different things with Pro Football Focus numbers. We'll have that later this weekend or Friday or this weekend. But there's a stat in there about Hunter Echols. He was very good coming off the edge this year in pass rush situations. So I think he has an opportunity to get to the quarterback next season.
I might throw Elijah Vera-Tucker in there. He could be someone that's.
I think we're already impressed with him, though. At least I am. Keely and I love AVT.
We've been on the AVT bandwagon.
But now we're going to see some, well, let's see. Is he going to be a regular starter, something like that? I think he would be in there. I don't know about incoming freshmen. I think like a Brew McCoy is going to come in and.
But is that surprising?
Yeah.
I think Marquise Stepp.
Okay.
I feel like we saw more of him in practice than fans really did, and fans actually got an idea of the type of power that Marquise Stepp has towards the end of the season when he actually got in games. So I'm curious, with more experience, more practice time, what Marquise Stepp will look like. But I think he's a powerful back. But as far as guys coming in,
if you're looking at freshmen, I think Drake Jackson. He's a guy that gets to the quarterback. He just does it. I don't know exactly where we're going to line him up. I think they'll put him at Predator, but if he fits the mold, I don't know how they're going to try to change his body when he gets here. If they try to move him inside or if they try to keep him on the outside, but he's a guy that gets to the quarterback and he does it with regularity. So he's probably the best pass rusher that they brought in the last couple of years, just pure pass rusher. He gets there. So he's a guy that could make an immediate impact. I thought Kanai Amalga would make a better impact than he did after watching him in the spring. Yeah. He kind of tapered off and wasn't really productive during the season. Maybe he takes a jump in that second season. Now he's adjusted with his body, and after gaining the extra weight and stuff, sometimes it takes guys an extra year. I think he's a guy off the edge that could make an impact too.
You want a flyer, like total flyer, probably not going to happen.
PF Flyers?
Go with Dominic Davis. They need help in the secondary.
Didn't he graduate?
Nope.
Wow.
He's still around.
Redshirt senior.
Could he be in the mix on the running back side because you got a new running back coach in Mike Jenks, or somewhere in the secondary? I don't know. Maybe. He's an athletic kid. We just don't see him much.
I'm interested in Elijah Griffin to see kind of the progression. I follow him on Instagram, and he posted a couple months ago how he's I'm getting serious now, no more games, sophomore year is serious. And we saw how that kind of changed Amon Marshall when he became serious about football. So I'm curious if that does anything.
Along the line, Isaac Taylor Stewart maybe too.
Yeah, ITS.
He played running back too. Did he play running back in high school some? So
they don't need any running backs. They need more cornerbacks.
That's true. Also, beware. There's always two. I feel like there's two players each spring that you just hear their names all the time, and then come fall, you never hear them, and then people are like, "Why don't we hear about this guy?" It's just happens. There's a spring spurt, and then nothing really happens.
Guys have huge springs, and they don't do anything. Yeah.
I'm interested to see how Stephen Carr comes back this year in spring and in the fall as well. If he can get back to 100% and running the same way he was as a freshman, it'd be interesting.
Interesting, for sure. We got the question: is David Yost a possibility?
Yes, definitely. From what little I've done research on him, his offense looked really good. He's a guy that I think he's at Utah State now, if I remember correctly, or he was at Utah. I think he's at Utah State now. He took over when the Utah State staff went to Texas Tech. So
Utah State hired, didn't they get Mike Sanford?
He's the offensive coordinator. No, I'm not exactly sure, but I liked what I've researched on Yost. I'm forgetting the exact things, but I did like that name. Sorry, guys, I'm a little off right now.
No, that's all right.
Hal Mummy. We also got questions for Hal Mummy.
No.
Yeah, he's at the top of the pyramid. You would like people that have been his disciples, like a Mike Leach learned from stuff so. We had on our podcast people talk about June Jones, Norm Chow. It's that's experience, but I don't think you need. I'm not saying everyone's got to go Sean McVay and get some young kid to do everything, but I'd much rather lean on that side than the other side. We saw June Jones. He was the offensive coordinator for, was it Team Mauka, I think, at the Polynesian Bowl, and the team only scored 7 points. It wasn't and it looked like the team that won Mackay, you'd watch their practices and they were like, okay, these guys are buttoned up. That was
Jim Zorn.
Jim Zorn, who yelled at shotgun, yelled at a lot of media people. He was he took stuff seriously, and
too serious.
And Mike Bellotti wasn't as serious on that side, and the team that was serious won. But June Jones was on the non-serious side. And I'm not saying, he's a offensive coordinator, co-offensive coordinator in the Canadian Football League now. But I don't think USC needs to go in that kind of direction.
So Yost was at Utah State. Now he's at Texas Tech. Sorry, I got it backwards.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've liked the offense. Utah State was really strong this year. I mean, some familiar names there with Jalen Green, former USC wide receiver. Also, I can't remember Tyler Vaughn's older brother. I'm forgetting his first name off the top of my head right now. Aaron Vaughn's actually. So those two guys at receiver, both of them had, I think 40, 50, 60 catches each. There was like 4 guys on that team that had at least 40 catches, if I remember correctly. So they spread the ball out a lot. They moved the ball really well. They put up a lot of points this season. I
think it's great if you get a guy like Yost. That kind of shows the USC power. Like, he went to Texas Tech, so who cares? USC go hire him. Like, you got yours poached away from somebody up higher up the food chain. You're higher up the food chain than Texas Tech. If you really like him, if Clayton likes him, go get him.
The problem is, if he's got allegiance to I'm forgetting the Utah State head coach that went to Texas Tech.
Yeah.
But he's got allegiance to him, so that makes it that much more difficult. So USC's not been very good at like pulling people away that way. It hasn't been their strength.
David USC 708 on Periscope says, which departing senior Trojan projects the best for the NFL?
We've heard some good things about Chuma Edoga, and we'll see. I think he's got all the athletic ability in the world. I kind of think an Iman Marshall has some potential there. There's no one that's going to be like a first, second, third round guy probably. Like, it may, Michael Pittman, like USC put out a story about him. He was going to get a third round grade. I don't know if any other USC players did. Maybe close. Might be fourth round kind of thing, but I don't know. I'd probably go like I might go with Edoga. I think he might go the highest. What do you think?
I'm not sure. Probably Marvell Tell might go the highest. That would be my first thought.
Interesting.
We'll see. I mean, poor Augustine, where does he go?
Yeah.
I mean, we kind of forget about him because he's not participating in a lot of things right now. But where is his stock at? How much are the injuries? Do those affect him? And his stock there. I mean, Marvell Tell is a physical specimen, and I don't know the real knock on him. He does a lot of things well, so I don't know what the real knock on is. He was a great blitzer this year. He can cover. He can come up and make tackles. The tackling may be a little bit of a concern, but I think that's teachable. Something that I think a defense in the NFL could help him out with. So I think those guys are up there. Chuma obviously has all the physical tools to be a good offensive lineman if he applies himself. And he had a really good day apparently at the Senior Bowl today, we were hearing. So, that's a great opportunity to push yourself up draft boards if you show out in Mobile.
Yeah, agreed. Jim Pollock on Facebook, he says, what position group will be the biggest liability next year?
DBs, because there are only 11 right now. You got 5 positions, and there's 11 guys. You got 2 guys coming off multiple shoulder surgeries. You got guys that are entering the class with, broken foot or maybe not broken with Trey Davis. ACL injury with Max Williams. There's just a lot of question marks there. So that if they have anything close to the spate of injuries they had this past year, injuries and exoduses, then you're going to be left with moving running backs to cornerback rather than talking about Isaac Taylor-Stewart playing running back. You're going to be moving somebody over there. You're going Trayvon Sidney and Pi Young are going to be back playing cornerback because you ain't going to have any bodies.
Was it like 5 departures and I think only 3 replacements or something? Is that where we're at right now?
Yeah, 4 senior cornerbacks and nickelbacks, and then Marvell Tell at the safety spot. Your veteran in that group is Dominic Davis, who has never played a defensive snap.
And that doesn't even account, Jack Jones and Keely Ross who are gone from the these are all guys that are gone from the roster. They were on the roster in 2018. Bubba Bolden, So there's like 8 departures from there. Right, 8 departures from last year. 5 seniors, and then
I think so.
Bolden, Jack Jones, and Keely Ross.
And you got 3 guys coming in. You got Britton Allen, Trey Davis, and Max Williams, and 2 of them are coming off injury-plagued senior seasons. How quickly is Max Williams ready to play? Coming off the ACL. Is Trey Davis healthy? Trey Davis is, one of the lowest rated guys. Is he able to step in and contribute, in practice or for depth? How does he fill in there? That's why I think, and it's wide open in that group, because, ideally, you have a 3 safeties that you can mix in there if you want to, potentially chase Williams in that nickel back and safety spots with C.J. Pollard, Isaiah Polamau, and Talanoa Hufanga. Probably feel pretty confident about that. But then you have Greg Johnson, Elijah Griffin, and Isaac Taylor-Stewart. That's the only, and Dominic Davis. Those are your 4 other cornerbacks. So are Elijah Griffin and Greg Johnson or Isaac Taylor-Stewart or Davis, are those guys, you think Griffin's probably the one guy that's probably has the lead for a starting spot. Is Greg Johnson's shoulder good? Is Isaiah Polamau's shoulder good?
Yep.
Is Dominic Davis ready to contribute? I mean, he hasn't played a snap of defense. So everyone else is their second or third year in the program. So there's a lot of question marks there. You came into this season saying the DBs are set.
Yeah.
And you're like, whoa, well, we were set besides at safety now where we just lost a guy and we lost a guy and we lost a guy. But you had so much depth with Isaiah Langley and Jonathan Lockett. Those are guys were, I guess, technically backups coming into the season, and you knew those guys could play. Now you're like, who's the starter? We don't know if any of those guys are ready to play.
Yeah.
Whether it be injuries or, their production so far.
Yeah.
Yep, big questions there for sure. We have a question. Jasper Smith is just filling in the questions, but he says, will Chase McGrath be ready to kick next year? If you don't recall, Chase McGrath tore his ACL in a weird non-contact play in the Texas game.
There was contact. You got hit.
That's okay. I said that, but then people were like, maybe he was not
running,
hit.
Like trying to catch up to the guy that was returning it for a touchdown or whatever, right?
Yeah, that's what happened in that
It was
game.
a little wonky. How about that?
So I saw him.
It's probably best to not have your kickers chase after people. So
yeah.
It's probably best to not have your kick get blocked.
I don't know if you guys have seen him recently, but I spoke at Jeff Fellinger's class at USC. I forget when it was. It must have been in December or something. I don't remember. Maybe it was November. And he was in there. He was actually in the class. So it was weird, like kind of speaking to the class, like people asking questions about the football team, and you have a football player in there. But he looked okay. Like, I don't know. I haven't got any official word on if he's going to be back for spring or anything, but it looked like he's, moving around and stuff. It's probably going to be if he gets cleared or not. I don't know if you guys have seen anything or seen him at all.
I have not seen anything yet. But someone did post a hype video of Chase McGrath, like the return of Chase McGrath, and I clicked on it, and my voice was in it, and I was so startled by my own voice. It was
Your voice was in the hype
video? Yeah,
video?
because I was like, Chase McGrath is out for the year, and I jumped from my own voice. It was such a surreal experience. A little inside baseball there. We have a question from, I just lost it. Matthew says, can Broom McCoy play both ways at USC, and will he play any defense?
First, USC has to make sure that he stays on campus because we're hearing rumors.
We have been flooded with questions on both all social media platforms. I didn't know if we wanted to get into it. There's now rumors about Broom McCoy maybe being in the transfer portal.
Let me just say, I would be totally shocked by it. I've not heard this from anyone. I've texted with a couple people. I've not received any responses during the show. We heard about this just before the show. At least I did. So I would be shocked. It just does not seem... the character is not the right word because transferring is not a character thing, but it just doesn't seem that's not the way he's ever gone about his things. He's always been a big USC guy. USC was always the dream school. I would find it hard pressed to be like 2 weeks into his collegiate life, he's gonna be like, you know what? I figure this is not the place for me. After 2 weeks, I think I need to transfer.
Yeah.
It would just seem like it would be such a reversal from a month ago when he signed his letter of intent to suddenly be like, I changed my mind.
Yeah. I think we put something in the war room a week or two ago. I forget when it was, but we had heard stuff like that. Like he wanted to get out of his letter of intent, but he had already been in school. I think, I was talking with Gerard, and he checked with some sources on campus who one of the sources just had lunch with him there. It seemed everything was fine. So I don't know where this was coming from. Then it kind of went away. But then I got like 2 calls today or 2 texts or something today about, hey, I heard that. And I'm like, okay, so I'm not sure if this is regurgitated from before, like if it's new or if there's something new that had happened. So we've been kind of checking on that. I don't think he's going to be going anywhere, but
I'm not buying into this, but who knows? We'll see.
It'd be weird. Like he's already moved in. He's living with Jude Wolf. Like it'd be so weird to move in, make that decision, and then suddenly be like, you know what? No.
Yeah.
But
I've had a lot of people bring that up though. A lot of people think, oh, he he could be a all-pro defensive end and stuff like that. And I kind of think they're just going to start with wide receiver and then kind of go from there.
Can he play both ways? Yes. Will USC actually use him that way? I would love to see it. I want to see him full-time at practice, full-time working on receiver, and then I want him to see him after practice or one segment a day working on pass rush off the outside. Come in third and longs. USC uses packages for third and long specifically. That was the Hunter Echols package. That was Jacob Lichtenstein at a point. Liam Jimmons was in there occasionally, I think. They use different guys there. Late in the season, Abdul Malik McClain, throw him in there. If he gets 5 snaps on defense, if you force 5 third and longs and you throw him in there, he is a legit pass rusher. He and Marcel Brooks, who I don't know how much you saw Marcel Brooks because you were paying attention to the other team, but a kid from Texas is going to LSU. The kid is going as a wide receiver, or he's going as an outside linebacker. He only played like 20-something snaps at outside linebacker this season in high school. He had like 12 sacks, though. That's the type of impact, not the same, but that's the type of impact that Brew McCoy has. He doesn't need a ton of plays, but he can get to the quarterback. So I would love to see him in a special package and, force someone else to take his spot. Say, hey, we're going to use him out here if he can prove himself, and, hey, Hunter Echols or whoever else it may be, prove that you deserve to be out there instead of him.
So I think there's several obstacles there. One, it's going to be, with Clay Helton, the head coach, like, I want to make this happen. But then you also have to, even if they put him a few snaps there on during practice, now you got to get Clancy Pendergast. He's got to be in that circle of trust. If he's not trusted by Clancy Pendergast, if he doesn't feel he can do everything he wants him to do, he's not going to ever play there either. So it's going to be, it would have to be like the coaches coming together and be like, this is something we definitely want to do. Try him out and do that. But I feel like there's some hurdles there to make something like that happen.
How much did you see Abdul Malik McClain do in practice to necessarily say that guy needs to get a couple reps? It's not, he continued to work throughout the season. He and Elijah Winston, both those guys got a little bit of burn at the end of the season, but there was nothing like that Clancy suddenly, they can get to the quarterback. USC struggled to get to the quarterback this past year. They went from 46 sacks, I think it was, and leading the nation, or tied for the lead in the nation, to like 29. There's a big drop-off without Porter Gustin, obviously. So I think you find anybody that can get to the pass rusher, get to the passer, that is a skill that changes games.
Yeah.
And I think Brew McCoy is a kid that has that capability in him. Now, they didn't do it with Michael Pittman. Thought Michael Pittman could probably do the same thing, but I would love to see it. Don't know if it's going to happen, but yes, Brew can play both ways if the coaches will let him.
People are calling it Broomers. The Broomers. Which I enjoy. We're reaching the top of the hour. If you want to get your rapid fire questions in, we will answer those. Dennis on Facebook says, why doesn't USC look at any JC transfers for DBs?
Academics usually.
Yeah.
I'm sure Elijah Blades was a guy that we're looking at who was a JUCO transfer. The problem with, if there's any JUCO transfers that are remaining, usually there's issues. And not necessarily character issues or anything, but just grade issues a lot of times with the thing. JUCOs can sign, their normal signing period is in December anyways, so they're usually not around for the second signing period.
Yeah. It's tougher. I think it's not like they're avoiding it, but it's got to be the right situation. It's just there's not like this pool of tons of candidates out there. It's got to really work.
They are looking at Greg Burns did go visit one DB from Ventura College. I'm blanking on his name off the top, but last Thursday he went and visited. So they're looking at some, but like I said, the pool is very small with those guys.
Danny on Facebook says, why did USC cool on recruiting Kayvon Thibodeau?
Another one of these?
There's a lot of issues with that recruitment, and I just don't know that. I do not have any sources on this, but I don't think that USC felt that he was going to make as big of an impact as the struggle to try to get him was going to be. So I think that's kind of like your cost effectiveness analysis there. I think that if you're on NCAA, the old NCAA game, you spend your recruiting resources elsewhere for options you think are maybe a little bit easier to get. They'll have a similar or maybe even a little bit better impact.
Yeah.
We've got some people coming in late. They want to know about offensive coordinator. No new news out of that. It's pretty quiet around USC. Jay Smith says, any word on how Greg Burns develops DBs and what he'll do with USC's DBs?
Yeah,
you were here for the last time.
It was a long time ago. The last time he was here. He's bounced around a bunch. He's up at Oregon State. I talked to some sources. I think there were some fairly positive reviews, but it's just one of those things where we haven't seen a lot of them lately around USC. I think he's a much different coach than he was 15 years ago or whenever it was than he was out there. I think they needed a different voice in that room no matter what. I think it's great that they had Dave Campo around, but it just didn't seem to work with Ronnie Bradford, wasn't on the recruiting side and stuff. I think you're going to see him be a lot more active recruiting. We'll watch him in spring ball and see how he's developed as a coach. It's been a long time since I've seen him in person and stuff, so we'll see. But I feel like it's an upgrade there, but I feel like that was one of those positions where they tried to get someone, a young, energetic, like super recruiter kind of guy, and just weren't able to, for whatever reason, the guys that they talked to, they were in good situations. They didn't want to leave. So he was sort of like, okay, but they can make it. I think he can make it work for sure. And I think it's an upgrade, but we're just going to have to wait till spring to kind of see how he's developed there.
And Jay Smith asked, did any word from him on how he plans to develop the DBs? No, because we don't get to talk to the assistants, because why would you want to talk to new hires? That doesn't make,
no.
We would love to, yes, but they're not allowing them to be available.
Philip says, do you think Clay won't look to hire a big-time offensive coordinator because he doesn't want to get burned again?
No. I think you're past the point of getting burned again, as far as someone leaving. You don't have another round of of NFL positions coming open. There'll be a couple, like the Rams will have, their couple of guys will have to fill those spots, but there's not there's 7 new head coaches, and even though Cliff Kingsbury shouldn't have been hired as a head coach, he did get hired as a head coach. Yeah. Like, his resume did not warrant being hired as an NFL head coach, but they saw something there, and they think that's the way of the future. The copycat league that the NFL is. Sean McVay does really well. Kyle Shanahan, not Mike Shanahan. See, go to the younger one. He's doing well with the Niners offense and turning things around there. So that's what everyone's seeing, and that's what they're trying to copy, and that's how Kingsbury got hired, even though when he was initially hired by USC, that was not the talk at all. No one was talking about him getting an NFL head coaching job. The question was, would he leave to go for an offense coordinator position? But more power to him. That's a very high-paying gig as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah.
Ryan says, do you foresee Clay Helton saying he's going to be offensive coordinator regardless of the negative feedback if that happens?
I mean, the part of the last one, I don't think he's going to be reluctant to get a big-name coach because he's afraid he would get hired by somebody else. I kind of feel like there might be some reluctance there just because that's going out of the comfort zone. Like, Kingsbury was out of the comfort zone, and it burned him. Dylan McCullough, he left his comfort zone, was a great hire. Kingsbury was a great hire. The 2 times you really left your comfort zone were great hires. McCullough only stayed for a year, and then Kingsbury stayed for a month. So I feel like there might be, well, it's not a fear of a guy's leaving again. It's more of a fear of hiring people you don't know. It's like out of the comfort zone. Maybe it's just, and so if that happens, if there's some scenario, whoever is hired, if it's, they promote like Drevno or whatever it is, and he's part of the play calling thing again, I just feel like then you're just giving up. Like, that's not what this team needs. Like, then you really didn't make any big moves on the coaching front, because the one big move you made went away. You didn't replace it with anything. Like I said at the top, the most important thing is bringing in somebody with their own system. I don't care how big of a name it is. If it's Graham Harrell's only done it for 3 years, he has a system. He's running it. Come here, run it here. Wherever you were in North Texas, just run this at USC. We have better athletes. It should work better. I think that's what's most important. So if Clay Helton's still involved in it somehow, then I think that's the failure, and I think that's the big decision that went wrong, and then you're probably not going to see that great of a season going forward.
Yeah. Leon says, is Michael Pittman the best receiver coming into spring?
I'm still a Tyler Vaughn's guy, but Pittman's I think legit right now.
I think he took a big step during the season.
Yeah.
Whereas I feel like Tyler Vaughn's regressed a little bit.
Yeah, there was, for whatever reason, it didn't click for either one of those guys early.
Yeah.
We've seen Pittman go out and make some. He probably won them a couple games just himself.
Yeah.
But I think in a good offensive system, they both can shine. They're both different kind of players. But he's probably, I would pick him now, which pains me because Tyler's my boy. But I would probably go with Pittman as the top receiver now.
Let's
Disagree
see.
or no?
No, I think Pittman established himself as the number one, the alpha dog towards the end of the season. He was kind of carrying the team, like you said, until he got injured. It was a UCLA game that he was injured or whatever it may be. I think that he has an opportunity to take another step forward, and especially if he can have a clean offseason where he's not banged up. I mean, he's had problems where he's broken, his thumb or broken something in his hand and not been able to practice in spring. If he can have a clean offseason, a healthy offseason, I think he has an opportunity to really take another step forward. And I think that third-round grade that USC said that he received can bump up to second or first round with a really good season. I mean, he could be a late first-round guy. I don't see that. Would not be surprised at all seeing that. I think he has that talent. He just has to find the consistency, and if he's on the same page with JT Daniels or whoever the quarterback ends up being, I think that was the big thing last year early in the season, is them not being on the same page together.
Yeah, I think it's big for USC to get him to come back, especially if he got a third-round grade, like you said. Like, typically you're gone for that. I don't think Deontay Burnett got a third-round grade or anything, and he left. So typically those guys leave. And the fact that he stayed during a struggling season, I think that can only help, JT Daniels or whoever ends up being the quarterback.
And a lot of times people leave for different reasons. Like Nickel Roby-Coleman left because he needed to support his family. He went undrafted, and look at what he's doing now, becoming a guy that is a starter for several years in the NFL. Some other guys, if your dad happened to be a pro NFL player for several years, probably don't need the immediate financial gains and figure it's better for their career if they wait an extra year and potentially can have better financial gains at a later date. So he's investing in himself, kind of thing.
Jerry says, who will be center?
I think Brett Nealon starts out at least there. I mean, I love Dedich coming out of high school.
Great.
Yeah.
He's got to get a little bit bigger, though. I mean, he still needs to be bigger, and love what I saw from Nealon when he was in there. I mean, he got limited reps, but he looked really good in there. He graded out really well and stuff, so I think that he at least starts there. We'll see where it goes after that.
Yeah.
And he snapped well.
He did. Ricky has a $1 million question. He says, for Swann and Helton to claim wanting to change the culture, etc., how is it possible that they can still claim that with some of the same coaches still being on the staff?
Yeah, I think overall there weren't enough moves made. Now, and the big one that was made is now, gone back on. So it's still big to get an offensive coordinator coming in. So you can do that. You also are going to replace your strength and conditioning coach. Now, that wasn't by your own doing, but that's just going to the way it happens. So if you could make another big move by, bringing in someone from outside to be the strength and conditioning coach, but it still falls short. And I feel like it was just sort of picking and choosing. It wasn't the big kind of sweeping moves that Lynn Swann was talking. I mean, Lynn Swann's statement there just made no sense. Like, it just didn't seem. And then the talk we were getting from Clay Helton the last couple of times that we heard from him when he was apologizing for close losses, that wasn't the talk of we need to make big changes. That was the talk of we were right there. Like, we were this close, which you were this close against a 2-win UCLA team. Like, that's not what Lynn Swann was right when they needed to make those changes. He was wrong by, you make those changes by changing your head coach. So there was a lot of conflicting stuff there. And we've heard kind of Clay Helton sort of back off of that a little bit since then. They talked about the Notre Dame model. I think they both backed off from that, but we'll see. But I don't think it's been enough. But by even Ivan Lewis going to Seattle, I think you can make another significant move there. So if you get a good OC and a new strength coach, it's a step in the right direction, but nowhere near what they needed to do, what they were talking about doing.
I agree. I got questions here. Rapid fire ready.
Sure. B on Facebook says, any news about candidates for hiring a president, a USC president?
I haven't really dug into that at all. I think the northeastern and northwestern or something.
All the north directions.
Yeah, one of them was a former dean at USC, I think. I mean, I haven't really dug into presidential stuff. It's not really.
What's his name up north in the Bay Area? The writer.
Oh, John Wilner.
Wilner had something on those two guys, so that's the best we know. Yeah, that's not our
rapid fire, Mr. Gunn.
All right, Zenwan says, if USC cannot secure another DB, do you think USC has one of the worst secondaries in the Pac-12? With the injury concerns, yes, there's talent there, but bodies are an issue. Zenwan also asks, what will the attendance be if the OC is another underwhelming hire? Ryan, what do you think? I
mean, they didn't top 60,000 all year, and now this will be the renovated Coliseum, which the max is 77,000 now. I just think that it's going to be down again. Like, I don't see them breaking through if it's an underwhelming hire. I think Kingsbury would have put more butts in the seats. It's a really tough early part of the schedule. So I see the same problems happening, and that's whoever the new president is going to be dealing with. Why is attendance at a historic? I think it was the lowest this past year in 30 years or something. So, not good. Like,
if it's underwhelming, you hear dun dun dun.
Yeah.
Jasper asked, do you see Helton making it through 2020? Keely.
Wow, putting me on the spot.
Yes.
Oh, wow. Shotgun, why are you putting me on the spot?
Because rapid fire.
You know, I don't like predicting things like that.
Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No, he will not be the head coach in 2020.
My gut says no.
Johnny asked,
No, Shotgun, you didn't give your answer.
I'm rapid firing here. Honestly, why would any top tier recruit want to play for Helton right now? The answer there is that recruits still talk about how much they love the interactions with Clay Helton, how much they love the family aspect of it.
Yeah.
He still does well with families. The development is the question. Are they going to develop? And hopefully they're hoping with the new coaching staff that'll happen.
And plenty of people play for this and not for the person. So it's not that they just want to go to USC. Like that's whoever the coach is. Like that, people don't realize that happens a lot.
Yeah, if you turn the camera around, if you can see behind Keely, there's a couple of degrees up there. That's what they play for. Some people are smart and actually go somewhere for the degree rather than the coaches.
There.
Anyone heard have you heard an update on John Jackson? I have not heard anything.
Okay, so I had Pete Carroll. Oh my God.
Pete Arbogast?
Pete Arbogast on our podcast earlier. And we never mentioned this, but, unfortunate, one of our colleagues, Gary Paskowitz, passed away this past week from a stroke. Him and John Jackson, former USC football player, and his son is a gray shirt at USC, are going to be. I believe they both had a stroke back in December, like on the same day. JJ's was major, and he's been in the hospital, still in the hospital the entire time. Gary had one that was minor and recovered, and it was apparently doing pretty well, but then had a major one afterwards, and unfortunately passed away. So someone I've known for 20 years or something like that. So crazy, unfortunate, and we just thoughts and prayers for his family, and hopefully Gary rests in peace. He was a true Trojan to the end, as much of a Trojan as anybody you would know. JJ, I mean, same thing obviously with JJ. I talked to Peter Arbogast. He'd seen him a couple of times. It looked like he's doing a little bit better, but he's got a long road. Like, it was a major stroke. He said he was speaking now, and you didn't have to be close to his mouth to hear him when he was in the hospital. But and I know there was a big surgery this week. I have not heard anything about how it went, but there's just been a lot of talk about pressure. Strokes within your brain, pressure there and swelling and everything. So I mean, you hope he pulls through. He's a fighter, athlete, all that stuff. He's still competitive when you'd see him around. So, but everything I heard is just going to be a long recovery. So we put something up like a P.O. box on USCfootball.com before. We'll probably find that again, where if you wanted to send cards or things, his family was accepting those. But I guess it was kind of overwhelming at the hospital, so they set up a P.O. box for that.
Yeah, we hope for JJ's recovery, and our thoughts are with Gary and his family and everything. He was one of the nicest guys on the beat. Always was a positive influence on the beat and starting the web turnover, I guess, or the web revolution with Ryan here. So
he's the first guy that hired you too, right?
He was first one I got paid for covering USC. So when I was finishing up at grad school, he hired me to do some features and stuff for We Are SC. So he was always nice and everything about that. Unfortunate that things like that, life comes around. It happens.
And just to clarify, JJ is still alive. Some people get confused.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
JJ is alive.
Yeah, he's progressing. It's just slow progress. He's still in the hospital, and yeah, I mean we haven't heard about. They were pretty private. I mean, both parties were pretty private about things. But there's been more. JJ, it's been a while now, so we've got some updates. But Pete Arbogast, really excited to go see him. He was talking about. I mean, him and Gary were going to go see him. Like, Gary was doing that well, and so tragic.
Yeah. Want to finish up rapid fire? Or we end on that?
Maybe
Boss
we should.
man.
Yeah, maybe we should end on that. That's. I mean, it sucks, but it's. I mean, it just. Yeah, it's hard because it's a small. We have the same people in the practice field. There's a small. It's kind of we're all kind of family. There's competitors. We work for different people, different sites, and it's changed. The landscape's changed. It used to be all TV or radio or mostly print newspapers, and now most of the people in practice are online. And Gary was one of those pioneers that was, kind of setting that up. It was, so I felt like we've kind of grown up together in the USC media. So just not seeing him there the next practice is just going to be, that first spring practice is going to be like just weird,
Yeah, it'll be surreal for sure. Alrighty, I think we're going to end on that note. Going forward, our schedule for Tunnel Vision, Shotgun Spratling is giving a little wrinkle because he has to cover some Super Bowl type thing. I don't know.
Sorry, guys. I'll be in Atlanta for Super Bowl.
Yeah, so that's a little wrinkle in our scheduling, but we'll be sure to tweet it out and put it on the Peristyle, so make sure you look out for that.
Probably still Thursday nights. And we'll get like Chris Trevino Gerard wanted to come for one. We'll maybe have him come back again.
Yeah, maybe
Gerard Martinez. Yeah,
that actually be a good week next week. Be a week before signing day.
Yeah,
true. We could do that. Alrighty, well, stay tuned for that. We'll make sure to keep you guys updated. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for joining us, guys.
Thank you.